I would like to welcome you to this wonderful and rather unusual conference.
In an open and impartial atmosphere.
And now it's starting now.
For over a century and a half, excavations in Jerusalem have uncovered segments of the city's network of streets in the early Roman period, particularly the street leading from the southern gate of the city and the Siloam pool towards the Temple Mount. In the past, the dating of the streets has been attributed to the Herodian period, or more recently to the Herodian dynasty, especially Herod Agrippa II, based on archaeological and historical considerations. In the following paper, a more precise dating for this building project based on numismatic evidence will be provided, attributing the construction of the street to the 1st century CE, during the period of the Roman prefects, or more particularly, the days of Pontius Pilate. This will be followed by a discussion of Pilate's mandate and goals as prefect in Judea. Before continuing, I would like to express my deep appreciation and gratitude to Dr. Donald Zvi Ariel, the numismat of the Israel Antiquities Authority, and to Dr. Josie L. and Moran Hajbi, my co-directors of the excavations in the Step Street in Jerusalem. This research and paper couldn't be accomplished without their partnership. The largest urban building project constructed in ancient Jerusalem in the early Roman period was the Temple Mount. Within this time framework, not only was the temple and its terminus constructed in grandiose manners, but also the streets leading towards it. Our knowledge of all the ways to enter the Temple Mount is spotty, but certainly the street climbing from the southern gate of the city to the western foot of the Temple Mount was carefully designed and monumental in scale. The street monumentality can be noted in the amount of stones quarried for its construction, which covered an area of 600 meters in length and at least 8 meters in width, weighing over 10,000 tons. And Moran Hajbi, in his lecture, will give another examples and features of this monument. Other roads in the vicinity of the temple, in particular the above-mentioned street from the south, would have led pilgrims toward the Temple Mount and would have allowed them to join the festivities in and around the temple. Various segments of those roads have been exposed in numerous excavations in Jerusalem for the 19th century by the likes of Charles Warren and until our days, such as in the excavations in the Tyropoeon Valley. Although the dating of the construction of those streets can, in broad terms, be attributed to the early Roman period, a more precise dating for one or more of them can have far-reaching implications for the understanding of Jerusalem urban development in the period subsequent to Herod's rule and up until the outbreak of the first Jewish revolt in 66 CE. For the street currently being uncovered in the Tyropoeon Valley, several scholars have given more refined time frame for its construction beyond simply the early Roman period. The days of Herod himself or Agrippa II were suggested as possibilities. The various excavations along the Step Street leading from the southern gate of the city, located near the Siloam pool through the Temple Mount, attest to the importance of this feature to Jerusalem's urban fabric in the early Roman period. The first to expose portion of this street was Warren at the end of the 19th century, when he excavated a series of shafts and tunnels in the vicinity of the walls of the Temple Mount. Several years after Warren, Bliss and Dickey exposed a significant portion of the street further to the south, in a small tunnel which followed the same path of the street and the drainage channel below it. In fact, it was the channel, the main artery of Jerusalem drainage, which led Bliss and Dickey to conclude that they were exposing the same street that Warren had. Since 2013, 2 excavations have been conducted in the behalf of the IAA and funded by the City of David Foundation. This excavation has exposed elements related to the street under discussion. The first excavation is located in the City of David National Park, along the path of the step street of the early Roman period, marked as Area S. The excavation is located approximately 220 meters north of the Siloam Pool and 360 meters south of the Temple Mount. The current excavations have exposed the street which runs from the south to north. The street width is at least 7.5 meters, not including the curbstones. In most of the excavations area, the entire width was not exposed, but the eastern and central portion were. The street was broadened on both sides by curbstone with structures along its path. And this I'm trying to bring Jerusalem to Cambridge in some way. The street was sealed under a thick destruction layer attributed to the Roman destruction of Jerusalem in 70 CE. Along its eastern edge, a stepped podium was exposed alongside with a group of broken pottery vessels, as well glass, metal, and coins dating to the days of the rebellion. The destruction level was sealed by a layer of ashlar stones originated from the building alongside the street, which collapsed during the destruction of the city. The many coins discovered in the destruction level include those minted during the rebellion. Therefore, providing a clear dating for the destruction and a terminus antiquem for the use of the street to the days of the Roman conquest of Jerusalem in 70 CE. In several locations, probes were conducted beneath the street pavement. The importance of these probes is that they provide a terminus postquem for the construction of the street. Ceramic evidence from such probes provided a broad chronological framework for the construction project, but the presence of coins is of particular importance as they can provide a very narrow dating for the construction. In total, 22 coins were discovered beneath the street in the 3 probes. The numismatic evidence from these probes clearly indicates that the construction of the street was not conducted during Herod's rule, but significantly later, as seen throughout the discovery of coins. One dates to Archeological reign, one from the time of Augustus between 5 to 11th CE, and most significantly during the times of Tiberius in 30 or 31 CE, providing a clear terminus postquem for the construction of the street some 35 years after Herod's death. It is important to note that the latest coin was found in the most secure of the 3 probes, in a location where the pavement, the grey mortar-like material, and the drainage capstone were all still in situ. Some 300 meters north of Area S, excavations were conducted at the southern corner of the Temple Mount, where a portion of the support system of the same street was exposed. These excavations, conducted by Hajbi and Uziel, are located between the support wall of the eastern edge of the street and the western wall. The exposed support system abutted the foundation of the western wall, sealing earlier installations and features carved on the bedrock. 3 phases related to the construction of the area were defined in the current excavations, which measures 10 by 2.5 meters in area. The support system here include the following elements: a north-south wall built directly beneath the street's eastern curbstone, and a series of east-west walls built between this wall and the western wall of the Temple Mount at intervals of 2 meters. In this manner, a system of chambers measuring 2 by 2 meters were constructed along the western wall, 3 of which were excavated. With these chambers, like casemate wall, earth fields were dumped in order to rise the level of the street and the structures constructed between it and the western wall. The fields contain pottery, glass, fauna, charcoal, and coins. The pottery found here includes complete cooking pots, store jars, flasks, bowls, and lamps. Of particular interest is one tall stand, which is very rare in excavations in Jerusalem, although has been discovered in the excavations at Metzada, where it was dated to the 1st century CE. Within the fields, 79 coins were identified, the latest of which dates to the period of Tiberius' rule. Particularly telling is one coin found within one of the walls of the support system, dating to the years between 17 to 25 CE. As the walls were constructed prior to the placement of the construction fields and prior to the street, it is clear that the entire system was not initiated before the second decade of the 1st century CE. Fields fit well with the dating of the coins found beneath the street described above, the latest of which dates to 30 or 31 CE. Furthermore, these coins also fit the coins described by Reich and Billig as the latest coin that they exposed beneath the street, also dating to 30 or 31 CE, during the days of the procurator that governed Judea in the days of Tiberius. It is important to note that these coins was found directly above the excavations of the support system described here. Its substructure do not present for the first time elements which date to the 1st century CE. Mazar and Bendov attributed coins found in here to repairs made along the street, while Reich and Billig attributed them to Agrippa II. That said, the general term Herodian was consistently used to describe the dating. Reich and Billig recovered coins, the latest of which dates to the years that Pontius Pilate served as prefect. They, however, rightfully noted that this date in the 4th decade of the 1st century CE only served as terminus postquem, with the actual dating of the construction of the street being somewhat later. In this light, Reich and Billig considered the historical evidence which notes the construction, or more accurately, repaving of the streets in Jerusalem during the reign of Herod Agrippa II, mentioned in the account of Josephus. Therefore, considering the numismatic and historical evidence, Reich and Billig suggested that the street was constructed in the days of Herod Agrippa II, in the final decade prior to the Jewish revolt against Rome. With the addition of 101 coins found beneath the street level, it is possible to re-evaluate the dating of the street. The numismatic evidence present at hand is sufficient not only to determine the terminus postquem of the street as 30 or 31 CE. With the lack of coins minted in the days of Herod Agrippa I or later, it is suggested here that the street's construction should be attributed to the days of the prefects, or more precisely, the prefect that governed during the days of Tiberius. It is important to note that although the names of the procurators are known to us from Josephus, the coins themselves do not mention the procurators, making it difficult to determine with certainty the exact years of their presence in Jerusalem. Despite this, following the traditional dating of the procurators places the coins defined above as belonging to the days of Pontius Pilate, who served as prefect of Judea during the reign of Tiberius. The traditional dates given to Pilate's reign are from 26 to 37 CE. But as mentioned by Daniel Schwartz, Pilate may have already served as prefect from 19 CE. In summarizing the chronological information, it is apparent that the street leading from the south end of the city north to the Temple Mount and running along the foot of the western wall predates the rule of Herod Agrippa I. The kingdom of Agrippa I extended to the geographical zones of Judea and Samaria only from 41 CE by the new Roman Emperor Claudius. It appears that the most prominent prefect during the period in which the street may have been constructed, subsequent to 30 CE but prior to 41 CE, is Pontius Pilate. Pilate is the last of the prefect to mint coins, after which Herod Agrippa I was next to mint coins. It is important to note that the minting of coins by Herod Agrippa I was seemingly quite extensive, as these are of the most common coins found in excavations in Jerusalem. During the later rule of the procurators after the death of Herod Agrippa I, only two minting are known, in 54 CE and in 58 or 9 CE. The lack of coins dating to the days of Herod Agrippa I, as well as the coins of the procurators who reigned after his death, in layers related to the construction of the street, should not be seen as coincidental, as these are the most commonly found coins in excavations in Jerusalem. Had the street been constructed subsequent to 40 CE, with collection of over 100 coins, some would have been dated past 30 or 31 CE. Therefore, it appears that just as the street cannot be dated to the period prior to 30 or 31 CE, it also cannot be dated to the period prior to 40 CE, leaving a very small time frame for its construction, probably during the days of Pontius Pilate. If one considers the coins found within the walls of the substructure dating to between 17 to 25 CE, which represent an early stage in the construction of the street and its substructure, it is likely that not only was the project completed during Pilate's reign, but likely also began during his time in Jerusalem as well. That said, the beginning of Pilate's reign is still debated, leaving this possibility open but not certain. When considering that the size of the project, the construction of the street, and its infrastructure certainly went on for a long time, it remains possible that it was begun prior to the arrival of Pilate. If this is the case, it may reflect on the character of the period in which Pontius Pilate governed Judea. The period of Pilate's reign is one of the longest, if not the longest of all procurators in Judea, lasting at least 10 years and possibly longer. In light of the length of his rule, his dominant stance as prefect, and the numismatic evidence to support it, it appears that Pontius Pilate would have been the most likely candidate to undertake a large-scale project of constructing the step street. Pontius Pilate the builder is known to us from various sources, for example the construction of the aqueduct described by Josephus, or the construction of the Tyropoeon in Caesarea, documented in the dictionary inscription at the site. On a whole, the description of Pilate in the historical sources is quite negative. For example, the description of the reconstruction of the aqueduct that brought water from the springs in Hebron Hills to Jerusalem focused on the robbing of the temple's money for its undertaking. However, if one looks at Pilate's action throughout the eyes of the Roman Empire, Pilate may be portrayed as an active, possibly powerful prefect that worked towards glorifying Jerusalem throughout public building projects borrowed from the Roman world. It is important to note that as of yet, no clear archaeological data has been found that indicate Pilate's role in the construction of the aqueduct, although recently Emmett and Gibson suggested that Pilate was responsible for the construction of the upper aqueduct to Jerusalem. It appears that Pilate strived for stability, as indicates by retaining the service of the single high priest for his entire reign. In comparison, Valerius Gratus, who was succeeded by Pilate as prefect of Judea, changed the high priest 4 times during his reign, as noted in Josephus' account. While Pilate tested the boundaries of Jewish belief, he also knew when to withdraw and compromise, as noted in his removing of the golden shields that had been brought into Jerusalem. Perhaps Pilate's dominance can be seen in light of the fact that up until the year 32 CE, the Syrian governor, to whom Pilate was technically subordinate, was stationed in Rome. This may have left Pilate to fend for himself when dealing with problems in his province, but it also may have given him some freedom in undertaking large-scale building projects which would have glorified both his name and the Roman Empire and the Caesar. Interestingly, the minting of coins by the prefect of Judea was limited to the time when his supervisor was in Rome. Upon the return of the Syrian governor in 32 CE, no more minting occurred in the time of the prefects. This paper has brought to light new chronological data, mostly focused on numismatic evidence, related to one of Jerusalem's most monumental feature of the late Second Temple period. In 6 excavations along Jerusalem's network of stone-paved street, the same chronological picture is repeated, which now has enough statistical backing to secure a narrow dating no earlier than 30 CE and no later than 40 CE. It appears, therefore, that the construction projects were undertaken during the time of the prefects ruled of Judea. When considering the chronological framework provided, the length of his rule and the stability in which his time can be seen, alongside tendencies for grandiose building projects noted in the historical sources, it is likely that the figure which stood behind the construction of Jerusalem's main streets was none other than Pontius Pilate from beginning to end. To date, other than the aqueduct, none of Jerusalem's building project could be safely attributed to the procurators, let alone monumental ones. The dating of the street to this period, and more specifically to the days of Pontius Pilate, present us with one such project, one of Jerusalem's most grandiose feature in the urban landscape of the early Roman city. The Step Street was likely one of the largest scale projects undertaken in the city and illuminates our understanding of Jerusalem's urban development in the period between Herod's death and the destruction of the city by the Romans in 70 CE. Herod would have been dead for at least 35 years when the street was built. Furthermore, it appears that the project should not be attributed to his descendants, but rather to the period of the Roman prefects, and more specifically to Pontius Pilate. The attribution of such a building project to this prefect and to the Roman governance on a whole retracts it from being part of the Herodian legacy. Therefore, it is no longer possible to refer to the Step Street, which follows the path of the Tyropoeon Valley, as the Herodian Street, as has been done for many generations. Thank you.